السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نحمده ونصلي على رسول النبي الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. قال الله تعالى في شأن حبيبي: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله على سيدنا مولانا محمد وبارك وسلم عليه صلاة وسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. Today, of course, is the 17th of Muharram, and of course, for most of us, even for those of us who remember the 10th of Muharram and the martyrdom and the sacrifice of Imam Hasan al-Islam and his family, we forget that the atrocities didn't end. Because this is the time when the daughters of the household of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, along with Imam Zain al-Abidin, in shackles are being taken from Kufa to Damascus, as prisoners of war and paraded around as such. And, of course, Imam Hussein al-Islam's head, his blessed head, is on the tip of the spear as they're carrying the heads of those that they had martyred as a sign of victory. And so, we can't forget this. And this is what various forces want us to forget. Because by forgetting that, we forget if we forget the sacrifices of those who came before us, so that the religion comes to us, then we have no religion. Because Islam is sacrifice. In order to follow Islam, you have to sacrifice. There is no following Islam without sacrifice. And you read the Quran, throughout the Quran, you look at the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. These are examples of this. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the sacrifices of those who came before us. As I mentioned the night that we had the program, it's a hard topic to talk about because it's so broad. But the other thing that makes it difficult is that, the audience has various levels of knowledge. So there are people, because of the environment, who have never heard anything about this. And then you have other people who have a relatively decent understanding of what happened. And talking to a group who have, basically go from one end to the other, it makes it somewhat difficult when you're doing that. Now, I was thinking about this the other night, and I think, I need to go back a little bit to talk about some of the events that led up to Karbala, so that we can understand Karbala better, and we understand the position of Imam Hussein al-Islam better. And so I'm not going to go all the way back, but we go back to the Khilafah of Sayyidina Ali, Karamallahu wajh, and then come to the Khilafah of Imam Hasan al-Islam, and then his martyrdom. Because there are other events that led up to this even before that. But, when we look at Sayyidina Ali, radiallahu anhu, there's a hadith narrated by Abu Sayyid Khudri, radiallahu anhu, in which he says that, he, along with other companions, were waiting outside for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to come out of his house. And when he did, one of his shoes broke. The lace on one of the shoes broke. And he handed that shoe to Ali, radiallahu anhu, to fix the shoe. And the rest of them, they walked off along with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as they're walking, he says that there is one amongst you who, as I have fought for the revelation, for the tanzil of this Quran, as I have done a qital, fought and physically fought for the revelation of this Quran, he will do the qital for the ta'wil, for the understanding of this Quran. And so Abu Sa'id radiallahu anh, he says that amongst us was Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu anhuma. And so we thought maybe it was one of them. And they asked. They said, Ya Rasulullah, so is this Abu Bakr or Umar? Who is given this glad tiding, this status that he will fight for the understanding of the Quran? And he said, no, it is the one who is fixing my shoe. And so Abu Sa'id says that we all went to Ali to congratulate him on this position, on this status. And he said when we said this to Ali reacted as if he already knew. And this hadith is mentioned by Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal in his Musnad, as well as in Musannaf bin Abi Shayba. Ibn Abi Shayba, Musannaf Ibn Abi Shayba. And both of them say that it's Sahih. And both of them are teachers of Imam Bukhari. So they mention this. The other narration in which Rasulullah ﷺ says to Ali that as I have fought for the revelation of this Quran, so you will fight for the understanding of this Quran against this false and forced interpretation. That's also mentioned by Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal in his Musnad, as well as Ibn Hajar Haythami and Imam Tirmizi. And then also in Tirmizi we see the hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that, oh Allah, turn truth in the direction of Ali. He didn't say turn Ali in the direction of the truth. There's a huge difference here. He said turn the truth in the direction of Ali. Whichever way Ali goes, the truth will follow him. And he said that the truth is with Ali and Ali is with the truth. And so these were things that were known by the companions, and more so known by the household of Rasulullah themselves. And so we see during the time of Rasulullah every battle that he fought was against the disbelievers. And of course anyone who fought them was automatically a disbeliever. I mean, there's no confusion there. However, in the Khilafah of Sayyidina Ali, because Rasulullah is fighting for the revelation of this Quran, so he's going to fight naturally against those who deny the Quran. Ali radiallahu anhu is fighting for the proper understanding of the Quran, so naturally he's going to fight those who are supposed to be following the Quran, because what they're doing is they're misunderstanding something, whether through a sincere effort or not. So if we look at the Khilafah of Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajhu, every one of his battles was against those who claimed to be Muslim. We see the battle of Jamal, the camels, which is against those who are held in esteem, those who truly were not just Muslim, but truly are the lights for the believers. That's what he fought. That's who he fought. But when we look at their attitudes, because in the battle of the camel, in Jangi Jamal, you have on the opposing side, you have Bibi Aisha Siddiqa, the wife of Rasulullah. You have Abdullah ibn Zubair, who is from Ashar Mubashara. You have Talha bin Ubaidullah, who's also from Ashar Mubashara. But during the battle, whenever any one of them was approached with something, they immediately backed off from their position. Ali, in the middle of the battle, he sees Abdullah ibn Zubair. Not Abdullah, he sees Zubair bin Awam. So Zubair bin Awam, Abdullah ibn Zubair is the son of Zubair bin Awam. So he sees Zubair bin Awam, and he mentions to him, he says, do you remember when the Rasulullah said that today, because they were playing one day, their cousins, they were wrestling with each other, He says, today they play and one day they will fight, and Ali will be with the truth. And when he reminds Zubair radiallahu of this, Zubair radiallahu immediately asks him, he says, tell me what to do. He says, you leave. And he immediately left the battle. When Talha radiallahu is reminded of what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said about Ali, he immediately backs off. And when he does, Marwan bin Hakam shoots him with an arrow, who's in the army that he's in his army. And when he kills him, he says that I have taken revenge for Uthman. Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha, when this happens, in the middle of the battle. And the battle, you have to understand, was started at night by the hypocrites. You didn't fight at that time in the middle of the night. The battle normally fighting started when the sun came up and ended when the sun went down, because you didn't have night vision. The Battle of the Camel took place at night because in the middle of the night, you have people attacking the camp of Ali saying Aisha sent us, and they have those same people attacking the camp of Aisha saying Ali sent us. And when they attack her camel that she's on, Ali sees this, and he sends two of his soldiers, one of whom is the brother of Aisha Siddiqa, Muhammad bin Abu Bakr. Both of the sons of Abu Bakr were in the army of Ali, Abdul Rahman and Muhammad radiallahu anhuma. So he sends them to defend her. And when her Hawdaj falls and her brother catches her, and then Ali rides up to her, he says that, are you hurt, O my mother? And she says, may Allah forgive you. These are not the words of anyone who has animosity against each other. And before the battle, Ali sent Ammar bin Yasir and Imam Hasan al-Islam to Kufa. And there Ammar he gives a khutbah with Imam Hasan standing beside him. And he says in the khutbah, and this is mentioned 3 places in Sahih Bukhari, where he says that, O people, truly Aisha Siddiqa is the wife of Rasulullah in this world and the next. But this is a test for you, whether you follow Allah's command or you follow something else. And so they understood that the position of Ali is the command of Allah, because he was the rightly chosen Khalifa through the Shura. But these are all lessons for us, and also test for us as well. How do we react? So Imam Hasan al-Islam understands this position. Imam Hasan and Imam Hussein al-Islam, both of them were generals in the army of their father, Ali radiallahu anhu. And so this fighting went on for 5 years, or a little over 5 years, until Ali radiallahu is martyred. And then Imam Hasan al-Islam is chosen as the Khalifa. It was not kingship, where Ali radiallahu said, make him the Khalifa, or your ruler. The Shura got together and said, we're going to make Imam Hasan the Khalifa because of what Rasulullah said. And he's the only one who's qualified to do this. Inna ibni hadha sayyidun. He said, this Rasulullah said, this son of mine is the master, is the Sayyid, the leader of men. Because of him, 2 parties, 2 large groups of Muslims will come, there will be peace between 2 large groups of Muslims. Because of him, not because of anyone else. And so what happens? He's chosen the Khalifa. He gets the army ready to go deal with Sham, the people of Sham. And when Muawiyah sees the army coming, he says to Amr bin al-As, he says, what should we do? What will happen if we fight? And this is not in the books of history. This is in the books of the hadith. He says there will be much bloodshed. So then they send two men from Quraysh, both of them companions, both of them named Abdul Rahman, to Imam Hasan alayhi salam. And with a blank sheet of paper, with the signature of Muawiyah, says, you name your terms, but I want the control. I want the rule, and you name your terms. So Imam Hasan alayhi salam named his terms, because he didn't want to see the bloodshed, and he knew, and he mentions this later on. And the terms were what? The terms were that you will rule according to the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah and the way of the Khulafā ar-Rashidin. That was the first term. Second term was that the cursing of Ali has to stop. It was part of the Jummah khutbah. The part that where we, in the second part of the khutbah, we say, Inna Allah ya'maru bil adl wal ihsan. That verse. That part of the khutbah was dedicated to cursing Ali. And again, this isn't in the books of history. It is in the books of history, but it's also in the books of the hadith. Because there are people these days who deny, oh no, that wasn't going on. And of course in the age of TikTok and everybody with attention deficit issues, no one can focus for more than 2 minutes. It's easy to destroy things. We in this community should understand that. January, tornadoes came. 15 minutes, 3/4 of the town is devastated. They're still working on it. And they're going to be working on it for a long time. So to build something up takes time. To destroy something is very quick. And so they just throw this out. It's not anywhere. And the listener, he doesn't have the time to go look. And they know this. And so now he believes, oh no, this is only in some book of the Shia. Say Muslim. Last hadith on the virtues of Sayyidina Ali karramallahu wajh. Sa'ad bin Sa'ad radiallahu anhu is the narrator. He is a companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One of the offsprings of Marwan is the governor of Medina. And he comes to him and says that he wants him to curse Ali. And he refuses. And so he says, then at least say, La'ana Allah Abu Turab. Allah's curse be on Abu Turab. Abu Turab is the nickname of Ali. It's the most loved name of Ali because the Rasulullah ﷺ gave it to him. Because one time when he was laying in the masjid and he had all this dust on him, and Rasulullah ﷺ is waking him up, brushing the dust off, saying, oh, wake up Abu Turab, father of dust. So he's asking this companion to at least say that the curse of Allah be on Ali. This was throughout Banu Umayyah's time. The only time it stopped was during the time of Umar bin Abdul Aziz, who replaced that with the verse that we recite. And so people say, oh no, that didn't happen. Well, it was one of the conditions, and yes, it did happen. And it's in multiple ahadiths. So that was the second condition. Third condition, that there will be no retaliation against the supporters of Ali and Hasan. They can't be touched. Fourth condition is that Ahlul Bayt will not be subject to any of the governors of Banu Umayyah. They're not under their jurisdiction. Ahlul Bayt, if the governors or any of their leaders say anything, they don't have to obey it. And then the final condition was that Muawiyah did not have the right to name anyone after him. And that it would come back to the Shura. And again, the same thing with this condition. Oh, this is only in the books of the Shia. Where is this? It's nowhere. Ibn Hajar Asqalani mentions it in 3 of his books. Ibn Hajar al-Haythami mentions it in Suwaiq al-Murqa. Imam Nawawi mentions it. Jalaluddin Suyuti mentions it. Imam Zahabi mentions it. Imam Zuhri mentions it. And the list goes on and on. They all mention this. And they also say that it was not fulfilled. One point here though, the companions of Rasulullah are not ma'soom, but they are mahfuz. So we do not, have any bad opinion about any of them. And all of them will enter Jannah without being touched by the fire, because they are his sallallahu alaihi wasallam's companions. And so people try to take this and also take the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he said that all of my companions are like stars, and if you follow any of them you will be guided. And they say, if you start talking about Banu Umayyah and what happened, then they start denying it. The hadith where Rasulullah says that all of my companions will enter Jannah and none of them will be touched by the fire, this simply shows his authority. If all of them were righteous and pious and they never made a mistake, then him saying that doesn't have that much meaning. But with all of their shortcomings and with all of their faults, they will still enter Jannah because they are his companions, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The mistakes they made are for our lessons for us. But even with the mistakes that they made, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed them, kept the door open, not only kept the door open, walked them through that door of Tawbah. And so if we fall into those mistakes, then we follow them to that Tawbah. And we will be rightly guided. Because people start, becoming very defensive and saying this and that. That's not what we're talking about. But the condition was laid. And so now, when Imam Hasan al-Islam returns to Medina Munawwara, because he also gave a khutbah afterwards. And in the khutbah he says, after he hands over the rule, he says that I have done this to save the Muslims from bloodshed. Because he says in that khutbah also, and this is also mentioned by Ibn Hajar Haythami, he says that because, Muawiyah fought with me about the right of rule, and the right was mine, not his. He says it was mine, not his. But if I had continued to fight, there would be much bloodshed, and he would not stop. So I prefer the lives of the Muslims over this rule. So when he hands over the rule, there are a lot more details to this, but just to kind of give people a general idea. And here the thing is also, I throw out a lot of names at times, a lot of details. Yes, they're important, but they're not that important. What's really more important is to understand the concept and have a general frame of what happened. This is why in the Quran you don't see many details, but the lesson is there. So when Imam Hasan al-Islam returns to Medina Munawwara, there are other accusations that are made against him, astaghfirullah. But when he returns to Medina Munawwara, one of the things people think, he returned and he lived, very comfortably, and there were no other issues, which is the farthest thing from the truth. When he returns, Marwan bin Hakam is the governor of Medina. Imam Hasan al-Islam, again, as we've mentioned so many times, from the waist up, exact image of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Marwan is concerned that people will see him and it will remind them of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, because again, this is the time of the Sahaba Ikram. And that will cause issues for Banu Umayyah. So he bans him from coming to the masjid of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Marwan, and he wouldn't want to go anyway because Marwan was famous for cursing Ali. He couldn't open his mouth without cursing Ali. And so now, the year 50 Hijri, 5th of Rabiul Awwal, actually 40 days before that, and days even before that, Imam Hasan al-Islam is poisoned. He's poisoned once. He survives. He's poisoned again, and again, and again, and again, and finally the 6th time. And on that poisoning, he's vomiting up chunks of blood. And as this is going on, Imam Hussein al-Islam comes to his brother. There's another accusation, so many accusations. Another accusation is that Imam Hussein al-Islam was upset with Imam Hasan al-Islam for signing the treaty. Astaghfirullah. They have no understanding of who they're talking about. And Imam Hasan al-Islam also, when he gave that khutbah, he said that you have given allegiance to me, to his troops. He says, you have given allegiance to me that you will make peace with whoever I make peace with, and you will fight against whoever I fight with. So Imam Hussein al-Islam comes to him and he says that, who poisoned you? He says, look, if it is who I suspect, then Allah will deal with them. And if not, then, because he asked him, he said, what will you do? He said, I will take his head off. He said, well, if it's who I suspect, then Allah will deal with him. And if it's not, then why should you kill someone who's innocent? And a lot of people, they say, oh, see, this is Sirri Shahada, so we don't know anything more than that, which again is another lie. Meaning secret shahada. There are two types of shahada. The open shahada, which is Imam Hussein al-Islam, and the secret shahada, which is Imam Hasan al-Islam. And if you look at most of Ahlul Bayt, Imam Zayn al-Abidin, poisoned. Imam Muhammad Baqir, poisoned. Imam Jafar Sadiq, poisoned. Imam Musa Kazim, poisoned. Imam Ali Rida, poisoned. Imam Muhammad Taqi, poisoned. Imam Ali Naqi, poisoned. Imam Hasan Askari, poisoned. It was the means of choice. All of them poisoned. So anyway, but then what they don't tell you is in those same books, Suwaq al-Murqa, Ibn Hajar Haythami, Ibn Hajar Asqalani, Zuhri, Abdul Aziz Muhaddis Delwi, again, the list goes on and on. The same scholars also mention that Jawza bin Athash bin Qais, who was the wife of Imam Hasan al-Islam, she's the one who poisoned him. Because she was given 100,000 dirham from Yazid, and also promised that if she did this, that he would marry her. And he, of course, was in line to become the king. But not yet. And we'll get into that next week because time is running out. But she poisoned him. But they don't want to blame Yazid because it becomes very obvious, so they say, oh no. See, Yazid was responsible for the martyrdom of Imam Hasan al-Islam as well as Imam Hussein al-Islam. But of course from a distance, so he keeps his hands, he doesn't want to get blood on his hands. And of course, the defenders of Yazid always finding excuses. Because they'll quote to you half of what's mentioned and skip over the rest. Same thing that the Jews used to do during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Same exact thing. And so, because 40 days later she goes to him, to Yazid, and she says, fulfill your promise. And he says, I wasn't happy with you being the wife of Hasan, how can I be happy with you being my wife? And he throws her out. And of course, what do you expect from those who betray Ahlul Bayt. Her father was also a betrayer. You know, Abu Bakr, one of his regrets was not having her father executed. And that gets into a whole different era and story. But again, these are not things that are from the books of Hadith, of Seerah only. These are things that are mentioned in the books of Hadith. And if they're not mentioned directly in the Hadith, they are mentioned by the Muhaddithin in their various books and explanations of the Hadith. And not by Shia scholars. All of these are Sunni scholars. So I'm going to stop here today. We'll continue next week. You know, and then eventually, so I can basically kind of go over things that led up to Karbala so that people can understand how could such a man become the leader of the Muslims not even 50 years after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to understand. May He fill our hearts with His love and the love of His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all those whom they love. Inshallah, brother will give the first adhan, and then we'll make sunnah, and then we'll continue normally.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.